Thank you, Mayor, and thank you, council members, for the opportunity to come before you today to share a little bit about the Americans with Disabilities Act of 1990. So today, July 26, 2023, the Americans with Disabilities Act turns 33 years old. Let the shameful wall of exclusion finally come tumbling down, said President George H.W. Bush when he signed this very comprehensive piece of legislation. To better understand why the ADA is important, we must first understand what are the factors that led to this significant law. In 1927, the U.S. Supreme Court in Buck versus Bell ruled that people with disabilities were not fit for this nation, and therefore they were forcefully sterilized. Imagine living in a nation like that as a person with a disability. In the decades to come, the American people began to see people with disabilities differently and wanted to do something about the injustices and about the discrimination. In fact, the federal government created valid legal protections such as the Rehabilitation Act of 1973, Section 504, which prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities by entities who receive federal financial assistance. And the Disabilities Education Act, IDEA of 1975, that supports children and youth with disabilities in special education. Yet, entities that did not receive federal financial assistance, such as private employers, state agencies, private schools, did not have to meet the requirements of the Rehabilitation Act of 1973. So, as you can see, the injustices and the discrimination continued. Then, on March 12, 1990, dozens and dozens of protesters with disabilities abandoned their mobility aids and began to climb, began to crawl, began to go up step by step to the top of the West Capitol entrance in Washington, D.C. This historic moment in time is known as the Capitol Crawl. This was the result of a stalled law, the Americans with Disabilities Act. But Congress was forced to respond, and the bill passed through the House and the Senate and was signed into law on July 26, 1990, 33 years ago today. This federal civil rights law prohibits discrimination against people with disabilities in everyday activities. This law ensures that people with disabilities are provided with the same opportunities everyone has to employment, to access to goods and services, and the equal access to state and local government programs like we do here in the city of Houston. Because of the ADA, public transportation has now become accessible. Ramps and sidewalks are now required to be accessible to people with mobility aids and persons who are blind or have low vision. People with disabilities now have the opportunity to be independent. They can drive their own vehicles, and they can find a parking lot that is accessible to them. We can now read captions on television and listen to press conferences and know that we will have an American Sign Language interpreter or captioning available. Embracing the principles of the ADA showcases our city as a leader in promoting equality and accessibility. It sets an example for other cities to follow, driving progress and positive change on a broader scale. By championing the ADA, we create a more inclusive, vibrant, and compassionate city where every resident has equal opportunity to succeed and participate fully in all aspects of community life. Mayor and council members, we cannot do this without you. Creating an inclusive and accessible city for all is a difficult task. And without your support and the support of partners like Carl E. Joshart, CEO of JFS Alexander Institute for Inclusion and his team, and Rhonda Abbott, Senior VP and CEO of Tier Memorial Herman and her team. JFS Alexander Institute for Inclusion and Tier Memorial Herman have been long-standing partners of the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities and throughout this entire administration. They are agencies who are dedicated to transforming the lives of people with disabilities, individuals, families, and communities, a mission that the Mayor's Office for People with Disabilities shares. Mayor, that is why we have asked Carl to join us today, followed by Rhonda Abbott for a very special presentation.